Greetings everyone, welcome to this new build guide. We're gonna take a look at the Poison Blade Vortex Assassin. It is extremely popular this league and it's for a good reason. It is extremely tanky, extreme high DPS, and good for clear speed, good for bossing. It has no downside, and I think mine can actually do all map mods on top of that. So it has absolutely zero downsides. It is so good as a league starter because it scales from nothing, and because it's poison or chaos damage, that means that most of our gear pieces are just, we just go with the resistance and life, and the rest of them are dirt cheap. The ones that we need unique pieces for is dirt cheap. And there are some expensive options also, but we can just scale up to that when we actually get the currency. You can see some tier 16 gameplay here, and I have also released 2 videos today that showcase the Cyrus fight and some whole map showcases. I did some Guardian map showcase there also. So take a look at those before you jump into the guide, please, and see if this is something for you. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's start talking about the gear. For the gear, we have some unique pieces. I'm gonna give you some options, some budget options, and some a little bit more expensive ones that you can work towards in this league. I have not gone fully insane gear on my character myself because I'm in a private league, and you cannot get very good gear in the private league right now because it's basically glorified solo self-found. What I recommend here, first of all, if you want for weapons, we can take a look at the free ones I have. Cold Iron Point is absolutely the best DPS option. You can do double if you want to go really ham on the DPS. If I switch out my chest piece here and go with another Cold Iron Point, I almost double my DPS. But I'd rather go with some defense because even with double DPS, everything dies so fast anyways. So I don't really care about that extra DPS. There are some other things also here. We can have a Binos Kitchen Knife, which is dirt cheap for our offhand, and this means that we're gonna spread around poison. So it basically is pro-live for poison. So if one is poisoned and dies, and then it's gonna spread it all around, so it helps you a lot with clear. Same thing with the obliteration, but then you cannot miss a match. You need to do 2 of these. That means it's gonna explode and deal chaos damage. So it's basically like the Explodey chest or Impulsa, but on the wand. So this one is really fun to play around with because it just poof, 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 poof all over the screen. Very nice. Otherwise, I'm running the new Mist Wall. Has been very popular on previous league with the Poison Blade Vortex, and it's very high defenses on this one with block spell and stuff like that, or block attack actually on the normal Mist Wall. But I have the replica one here because we already have so much attack dodge and stuff like that and block. So I figured we're gonna use the new replica Mist Wall here. You don't need to, the normal Mist Wall is fine and dirt cheap, so if you want to do that. But I saw someone doing the number crunching on the new replica and it seems much better than the other one. So if you want a more advanced option here, then go with the replica here. So if you're leveling, this is probably the setup you would go with. For our chest piece, I have actually, I 6-linked it after I did the videos that I was, the clear speed video or the mapping video and Cyrus video. I actually 6-linked it right after that, so of course. What I had in the beginning was only this, because this is a pseudo 5-link. So I linked this 4-link and then it has vile toxins in it. So I use this as a 5-link, and this one is really cheap also. So don't worry about that. This one just cost a chaos or 2 or something like that. I've dropped 4 of these already in the league, and I managed to corrupt one of them. But for the really good option here, Kintsugi, it's really synergized well because we have so much dodge and block and everything else. So if we get hit, we are gonna be much less likely to be hit again. So it synergizes very well. And honestly, we do not get hit very often, and if we do, we are having defensive layers that kicks in all over, so really good option. But this one I picked up, and it's really good if you have a lot of dexterity and intelligence, which you should have from the tree already. And I had no problems reaching the 300 and 150 requirements here, but it has basically a 7 link. So if you have the 6 link here and the lesser poison, level 10 lesser poison, then it works as a 7 link. So this, and with the cold iron, is almost double the DPS. So I'm just saying there is plenty of more damage you can get out of this. This last item here, unique, that I want to really talk about is the Devouring Diadem. This lets us reserve our whole mana here. And basically, when I'm using my skill here, it's using up my energy shield. This is very nice, because otherwise we would need to run with a mana flask. So let's see here what I was using before. And we're going to talk about that in the flask section also. This, I mean, was running before, because you run out of mana really fast because the cost of Blade Water is quite high. But because we're using Unleash, we don't need to do it very often. As you can see, I'm getting 4 stacks each time. So Devouring Diadem is really good all around. Helps us reserve more or less of our reservation, like Malevolence and Despair and stuff like that in Blasphemy and Herald of Agony. So let us have more of these reservations going for our build. So all around, best in slot right there. Other gear pieces is just generic life, resistant, fill in whatever stats you need for the build, and that's it, guys. It's very easy to just get this going, and it scales very well from low level and goes all the way to Cyrus 8 without any deaths or any problem. For our flask, we are gonna go with 2 unique versions. We're gonna go with Corralito's Signature, which is probably the most important one. Chance to poison on hit during flask effect is very nice, but also increased duration on poison you inflict during flask effect is even more nicer. But the most best thing is you get the perfect agony on flask effect. That means we're gaining this one right here. Perfect agony lets us scale critical strike and critical strike multi, and it basically lets us have a lot more. It affects the poison or damage over time, which is very nice, because there's some really good nodes here and there on the tree which let us scale critical strike and critical strike multi a lot. So highly recommend to have this flask on you. The second one is a Series Promise, some chaos resistant, and the one mod we're looking for is gain 90% of physical damage, extra chaos damage during flask effect. This gives us a lot of extra DPS. These two I recommend highly. Chaos resistant is a little bit Achilles heel for us, and that means this one is perfect for us. For the normal ones, first I just want to mention that if you do not have Devouring Diadem, you're gonna need a mana flask, and you want an enduring mana flask, because flask effect is not removed at full mana. Flask effect does not queued, that doesn't matter, but it does not be removed after. So you mean if you're spamming your skill and then you gain full, that means this one is gonna persist. It's like Slayer Leech almost. And this, I really recommend to go in Enduring Sanctify Flask, because otherwise you're just gonna spam and then you're gonna use up your flask charges, and then you're gonna not have any more flask charges, especially on bosses and stuff like that. But if you're good with mana, you don't need a lot, because you're gaining so many Whirling Blades for each click anyway. The other flasks are, of course, we need Life Flask, and I'm going with the Bleeding Life Flask. I always go with the same Bubbling Eternal Life Flask of Staunching every single time. For our other one, it's going to be a Quartz Flask. It gives us some extra dodge. We can also go with the one that gives evasion, also very good, but I like this one because it gives us phasing. We get phasing from other sources, but phasing buffs us. So. And I always go with the warding one. So we temporal chains or vulnerability and feeble, all of those curses on maps, just we don't care about them, because this flask is going to be up all the time. And for our last one, it's a Quicksilver Flask to get more Sumi. We always get a lot of this when we're running Assassin anyway, but more is better, and I'm going with increased movement speed during Flask effect as my extra one, and then reduce charges use so I can spam it more. So those are the flasks. I would not change a single one. Honestly, these are the best I've found, and I've tried out other versions, but this is what I settled for. For our jewels, I do not have a lot, but I have some cluster jewels that I want to talk about. But the normal jewels is just basic one. It's a maximum life, of course. We always have maximum 7, increase the maximum life. It's always nice on all of them. Some resistance, if we want to fill in those. Increased damage with poison, increased damage, multiplier, increased time. Chaos damage over time multiplier, and of course because we're using perfect agony on our flask, we can also scale critical strike multiplier or critical strike chance. So those are very good. There's other stats also, but those are the best ones. We also have a jewel here in our belt that gives us maximum life and chance to gain onslaught for 4 seconds on kill, which is also a huge boost in run speed. You can also have other mods on there, but I did not bother. Again, I'm going private league, so there's not a lot of things to pick from. But more importantly, we're gonna talk about the cluster jewels. I did not run cluster jewels until Cyrus 6, I believe. You don't need cluster jewels at all, but obviously I self-crafted these. These are super simple to self-craft. What I did was get a large cluster jewels with adds 8 passive. It needs to be a certain level. It's, I think, I have 75 here, so just get over 75 in eye level and you will be fine. What I'm searching for is Overwhelming Madness. Overwhelming Malice, yes. It gives us, can I not see it? It gives us Unholy Might anyway. And there's some other good ones, but just try to get that one plus with one more of these passive skills that boost you. Any of them is fine, but you want to go for Overwhelming Menace for the large cluster. For the second one, make sure you roll it on a plus 12 increased chaos damage also, otherwise these will not roll. For the next one, for the medium one, it's gonna be adds 4 passive. You can do it on a 4 passive or a 5 passive, it does not really matter. And you want it to be over item level 78 here. And the one we're searching for is Circling Oblivion, also very easy to get. And then you just try to get the best one after that. I got Wicked Pal, which is obviously really good also. But you want to roll this on percentage to chaos damage over time jewel here. So make sure it has the right amount of passive, it has the right base, and it has the right eye level. So anything over the eye level I'm using here is fine. So 75 here and 78 here. And then I just went a little bit overboard here with one more small because it dropped from here. You can go with the adds to 2 passive or 3 passives. I always go with 3 passives if I'm going for the life one. Here's increased maximum life, and I'm going for Searching Vitality or Federal, I think is the one that is really good, but that one is really rare to roll. So again, I'm in private league, so I'm not gonna roll for it. And the other one, you can always do the same thing on the other side, just roll it out here if you have more skill points, if you want to drop something on the tree. But those are the jewels that I went for, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, and I'm pretty surprised how easy it was to self-craft these jewels. Just get the base and then start spamming away. For our skill gems, we're gonna go with the main link first. It's gonna be our Blade Vortex. I'm going with Valve Blade Vortex. It's really nice because you can push it and it just goes away, and you basically, if you have a hard boss, then you can just run away and let the poison just stacks up with you not even being there. So it's very nice to have Valve Blade Vortex. But if I get a 21 Blade Vortex, it's gonna be a huge boost to our damage. So it's kind of a trade-off. I cannot valve this because it's already valved because of the valve version of Blade Vortex. So yeah, I'm gonna need to double corrupt it to get the better version of this at some point. Then we're gonna link it with Unleash that lets us do just one click and it's gonna get 4, and then we do one more, it's 8. That means we are just gonna get our stacks much faster and easier. So this one is gonna help us a lot. Unbound ailment just boost our damage, deadly ailments just boost our damage, Val toxins, poison support and stuff like that. It's all boosting. If you want to take something out for a 5 link, then I would take out poison here. If you have this, then you would do the same. You would just take these 4 up here, Unleash, Blade Vortex, Deadly Ailment and Unbound, and put it in our 5 link here, or pseudo 5 link, which is Val toxins here. For our next, we're gonna debuff the enemy with Wither. So we put in a Wither totem here, spell totem with Wither and multiple totems. If you want to do it in 4 link, then you can do faster casting also. But I see you stack up the Wither very fast anyway on boss head, so I just kept it like this. For our auras, it's going to be in our helmet. If you do not have the Devouring Diadem, you cannot run all of these. So I would drop the Blasphemy with Despair and wait until I get the diadem for that, and then you can just self-cast it. I self-casted most of the game, and because I only got this yesterday, the Devouring Diadem, it's a great quality of life to not, then you can just focus on the mechanics instead. But we have Despair with Blasphemy, and then we have Malevolence, and we have Herald of Agony. So normally I would just go with Malevolence and Herald of Agony here. You can also go with an amulet that you get from Elder that lets you gets Despair not to reserve any mana. Then we can also put in a Skitterbots in our build. But that there's no such thing on the market in my private league, so yeah, I didn't even bother with that. Plague Bearer is gonna carry you a lot. Activate, this one is super important, guys. Plague Bearer is so strong. It cannot be boosted by any skill gems like these, like Deadly Ailment or Wild Toxins. But what it does is, when you poison enemies here, which you do all the time, and this just ramps up, a number is going to come up here, and the higher level of Plague Bearer, you can release that number over time, so you're like, it's counting down essentially. And you can boost it with Empower and Increased Area of Effect. This one, when you push the button, which is here on my easiest button to reach, it's just gonna wreak havoc on all the mobs around. So super good on bosses, super even better on clear speed, because you're just gonna be having a cloud around you that just kills everything. Then I have my basic cost of damage taken setup with Immortal Call, Increased Duration, and Desecrate. For the Desecrate is only for bosses. If I get hit, then I generate corpses, and the Devouring Diadem can have a Feast of Flesh that gives me mana and life. So this is just so an extra defensive mechanic for me, if Devouring Diadem. So you don't need this otherwise. Then I have my Portal Gem, which I don't even use because I picked up so many portals. Flame Dash to get over ledges, and Withering Step I have on my left click here, so every time I move it activates by itself, so I don't need to activate it manually. And Vitality, because I had some mana left over, and because of the change in the Vitality now reserves a flat amount of mana. That means I can just level it up to the highest level that my reservation actually gets to, so I got up to level 6 only. Another thing, you can also have some movement skill here, but you cannot traverse ledges then, is Whirling Blades. It's really good because then you can go with Fortify support, so you can activate that with faster casting, so you can get some extra defensive. But I feel like we're already so high on defenses, and I like the good thing that you can flame dash up the ledge or over a gap, and you don't need to go around things. So that's basically all the gems, and let's go to the next. For our passive tree, I would just pick up some chaos nodes here and go over here, picks up these nodes, get some extra life in the beginning, it's always nice. Then I will rush down all the way and pick up face acrobatics. It's gonna keep us alive early on here. Then you can go up here and pick up the poison nodes here, chaos damage over time, because we are gonna need them for our Blade Vortex when we're leveling. These I would not take. These are only if you have an additional curse. I right now have an additional curse on Temporal Chains and Man Despair. So don't bother with these nodes right here if you do not have. These are very nice either way, but this is only because I have 2 curses. So do not take these otherwise. Then if you do not have the cluster jewels here, then you can fill out a lot of different spots here. You would take these to offset some of the resistance and get a jewel socket. Jewel sockets are always very good to have. I would also take these nodes right here. These 4 nodes I had allocated beforehand, and it really scales well with evasion rating and max life. I would also pick up, there's some more life nodes here. And yeah, that's basically it. Then you have used up pretty much everything. And then I would also pick up these nodes right here. I know some people are also picking up these here. So there's plenty of options to go for. And generally you just want some skill duration here, some life. It's very generic to go with all of these, and the only thing different is because we have a perfect agony on our flask, we are getting a critical strike and critical strike multiplier that scales with our build here. And for our anointment of our amulet, as you can see, I'm not reaching there with these. I used freedom of movement. You can use it for any other one also. I know Poisonous Fangs is all really popular also, I believe, and yeah, but I found this one really good because it gives us phasing all the time and increased movement speed while phasing, extra dodge, extra evasion. So I just took it as a defensive options. Like I said, we have plenty of DPS as it is. So that is basically the passive tree. Hopefully there's some good options here if you do not want to do the cluster jewels. And like I said, you don't need the cluster jewels. It's just going to boost you immensely, but you can still do all of endgame without them. For our Ascendancies, we are gonna go with Noxic Strike and then go to Toxic Delivery. This is basically our bread and butter. We're gonna poison a lot, we're gonna regen a lot, and for every monster we kill, we're just gonna have a lot of life regen. This is gonna sustain us through everything. So as soon as you get your first lab going and you switch over to Blade Vortex, basically, or however you can do it beforehand, but this is gonna skyrocket you in both survivability and in DPS. So as soon as you've done your first lab, you're gonna see a major buff to your damage. And then we go with Toxic Delivery, of course. It gives us a lot of good things, like a lot of damage, and you can see the critical strike also there, and physical damage as extra chaos damage against poisoned enemies, which is all of them. After that, I would go with Mistwalker to get that elusive buff, some extra defense before we doing the Uber Lab. Can be very nice to just get that extra, and also it lets us clear faster, and it's just great all around, especially with face acrobatics and stuff like that. It synergizes very well. The last one for Uber Labs should be Opportunistic. It's increased movement speed, some extra damage against more damage when there's at most one rare unique enemy nearby, which is the harder bosses, and reduce damage taken while there are at least 2 rare. So great for just moving around, do some extra damage, and yeah, all around there's no other options here. So just go with these first, the poison ones, Mistwalker, and then Opportunistic. For our Pantheons, of course you want to upgrade them, but I have not found a single Divine Vessel, so don't look at my upgrades here. But the one I go with is Soul of Lunaris to get some extra physical damage reduction and nearby enemies, and some extra movement speed. I am all for the movement speed. But for bosses, you probably want to go with Soul of Solaris to switch between those two. Otherwise, I have Soul of Guru Khan, or whatever it's pronounced. Chance to evade attacks is synergized with the whole evade and dodge and block synergy we're going on here. And increased movement speed, we haven't been hit recently. It's always nice also. So highly recommend these two for mapping and switching over to Soul of Solaris when it's time for some hard boss like Cyrus or whatever you feel like you're not very proficient at. For the bandits, we want to kill them all. We get 2 extra passive points and we can utilize them much better in this build than we can with all the other ones. But if you actually want something in the beginning, it might be better if you league start, might be a Lyra. But honestly, just kill them all and just get the 2 passive points. I always do, and it always turns out much better towards the end game. And we want to scale it always to end game anyway. And there we have it. We have finished the whole build guide. I want to thank you so much for supporting me by putting a like on this video and subscribing to my channel. If you have any questions, like always, leave them in the comment field below and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Have an awesome day, everyone.